Hi, and welcome to Healing from Grief and Loss, where top experts guide you on your journey to find strength, comfort, and joy again. I'm Andrea, your host, and on today's show, my guest expert is Marie-Claude Goudreau. She's a speaker, an author, and a teacher, and she has created a video for you today. She's someone that really resonates with me, and not just because she's a fellow Canadian. So we'll see what you think. So sit back, relax, and I'll see you in a few.
Hi, my name is Marie, and if you're here watching this, chances are that just like me, you're grieving over the loss of a loved one. You've probably lost someone that you thought you couldn't live without. I've been there too, I get that. I lost the man that I thought I was going to spend my whole life with. A was the epitome of health and strength and wellness, and one day he started having some abdominal discomfort, and a few short weeks later he was diagnosed with terminal pancreatic cancer. So when the diagnosis came in, I quit everything to be by his side. I quickly became a caregiver, and I walked with him on his journey between life and death. After A took his last breath, I felt lost, I was depressed, I was anxious, I felt completely broken, and I didn't think that I was ever going to be able to find meaning and fulfillment in my life. Really felt as though a part of me had died and my life was over at 32. And today, I want to say that I'm a grief coach. I've rebuilt a life that looks and feels like me. I've completely redefined my identity and who I am. And I now guide other women in their own healing journey. So a lot has changed between then and now, and that's what we're going to be talking about in this video. I wanted to share with you the 3 beliefs that I had to transform in order to begin my healing and rebuilding journey. So let's go. So the first belief that I had to shift in order to begin my healing journey was this belief that I would never be happy again. So I felt as though the enormity of my grief was going to weigh on me this much for the rest of my life. And I thought, how am I going to bear this heavy weight and this sadness and this burden for the rest of my life? I was only 32. And so that brought me a lot of pain. And I had heard that scientifically it is possible to grieve over the loss of a loved one, but also to feel happiness and gratitude and joy. So grief and joy are not mutually exclusive. So even though intellectually I understood that, in my heart and in my soul, I just truly didn't believe it. My joy was gone. I couldn't fathom how I was ever going to be reclaiming joy in my life. It just felt like a thing of the past. I felt like a part of me had died right along with A. And I'm sure that you can relate to this, as I know so many of my clients do. But then something happened to me. So a few months after A passed away, I actually went on a motorcycle ride. Now, this is really out of character for me because I'm a very scared and cautious person. I don't even get on roller coasters. Like, I think I've been on a Ferris wheel like maybe 3 times in my life, and it's not for me. But I long to feel alive again, so I long to just connect with this feeling of aliveness. And there was something that I learned from watching A struggle with his cancer and then watching him take his last breath was that life really, really is short, and I just wanted to feel alive. And I remember I went on the motorcycle ride and I was completely elated. I felt bliss. I was happy. The wind was hitting me from everywhere. The sun was shining. It was hot. It was uncomfortable. It was scary as hell. But I felt truly alive and I felt happy. I felt pure joy. And it was a really powerful moment in my journey because from then on I became really intentional about reclaiming my joy and about curating moments where I could feel happy and where I could feel joy, and just it was all about starting to reclaim the joy that had left me when A passed away. And so that moment was a really powerful moment of healing for me because from then on I really understood the meaning of how grief and joy are not mutually exclusive. And it also shifted what I believed about grief healing. So I used to think that healing from grief meant that I had to be rid of it, that I had to no longer feel the pain of my loss. But that's not true. So what I know now about grief healing is that it's not about being rid of the pain, but instead it's about integrating our loss and our grief as part of the person that we become. And so it's kind of like we rebuild a life that we love around our grief, which remains forever a part of us. And it remains forever a part of us because our grief is really just a representation of our love for the person that is gone. And so the goal of grief healing is never to be rid of the grief, because grief is love. The second belief that I had to shift in order to begin to heal was that I couldn't be connected to A anymore. So losing him in physical form left an immense void in my life, and I couldn't believe that I was no longer going to be able to feel his love, our love, and that I was no longer going to be able to be influenced by his spirit. I spent the first year after he died just searching for him all over the place. I was frantic. I was reading all the books. I was watching all the videos about near-death experiences. I consulted with mediums and healers and Reiki practitioners and all kinds of woohoo people just in an effort to understand where he was, and in an effort to keep reaching out to him so that I could feel connected to him again. In my frantic searching, I came across this concept called continuing bonds. Now, what the concept of continuing bonds says is that it is normal and it's healthy to want to remain connected to our person, and it's normal and healthy to even have a spiritual relationship with this person after they've passed away. And this is a complete shift from the grief theory of the past, where basically it was considered that we were stuck in our grief if we wanted to stay connected to our person. And so instead we used to be encouraged to let them go, like just cut it off, like cut that relationship off and let them go. And so early on in my grief, that just didn't sit right with me at all. So when I came across continuing bonds, I was like, okay, you know what? That feels right to me. In order for me to move forward, I need to remain connected to this source of love and strength that A represents for me. And so since then, it was all about how do I remain connected to him as I move my life forward in a meaningful way. And so for me, remaining connected with him happens in a number of different ways, but one of the ways is through ritual. And so I'll give you an example here. Basically, every year on the anniversary of his passing, I make sure to take time out of my life, out of my schedule, to just be with A. And so what that looked like in the first year is I took 3 days off of work and I went to a cabin in the woods. So I just wanted to be completely alone, and I wanted to just dial the noise of life way down so that I could get quiet with myself and be with A. So in that quiet and sacred space, I'm able to notice the signs that he actually is sending me almost on a daily basis. And I'm able to witness all of the ways in which his spirit still influences the way that I choose to lead my life forward. And so since that first year, since the cabin in the woods, I make sure that I take time out of my schedule every year to be with him on the anniversary of his passing. And that's something that you can do as well, not just for big anniversaries, but really anytime that you need to feel connected to your person. Another way in which I stay connected to A is through this practice that I call tapping into love. So this first happened to me by accident. About 8 months after A passed away, I went to a Tony Robbins seminar. I love Tony Robbins. So as part of one of the meditations that he guided us through, Tony asked us to bring up a memory to our mind's eye of a time where we felt really, truly, deeply loved. And so as I closed my eyes and I just brought A to my memory, and I felt the full extent of his love for me, and I felt the full extent of my love for him, and I could really feel it in the present moment. So I didn't feel the love as a thing of the past. And in fact, after A passed away, I still love him as much today as I did the day that he died. And so that love is not a thing of the past. It's really a thing of the present. And so the love that we share isn't lost, because if I close my eyes and if I get quiet with myself and if I bring up the feelings within me, I can still tap into that feeling today. And so A used to say that his love for me made him strong, and I can say that for me, ever since he died, his love for me and my love for him has made me strong, and it's allowed me to rebuild a life that I love while still honoring him, a life where he is still very much present. The third belief that I had to transform in order to begin to heal was this belief that I had to get back to the person that I was before A died. And so there's so much that this society gets wrong about grief. There is so much misunderstanding, so much shaming, and so many beliefs that are out there that do not serve grievers at all. And so there's this false belief out there that basically the process of grieving means that you are healing yourself in order to get back to normal. What is normal? After someone you love so much, after someone who was so influential in your life passes away, there is no more normal. You have to rebuild your life, and you have to redefine what normal is to you, and you have to redefine your own identity. So for me, there's no going back to the person I was before A died. Unfortunately, that person has also died. And so after he passed away, I had to grieve him, but I also had to grieve the version of myself that I was while he was still here. My loss has really awakened me to what truly matters in my life. And so I decided to use my grief in order to rebuild a life that is on purpose, that is intentional, and where everything that matters to me now basically is the foundation on which I rebuilt my life. And so right now, my life centers around connection, around love, adventure, and service to others. So my grief has really allowed me to step away from the hustle and the busyness of life in order to take pause and to rethink my entire life. And the life that I have now is a life that truly looks and feels like me. It's a life that is in integrity with who I am today, not who I was in the past, but who I am now. And so it's a life that's in integrity with my values, and that is where we derive meaning and fulfillment, from living a life that is in integrity with who we truly are. And to this day, I credit A because that is a gift that he gave me. In my grief, in my loss, it's really allowed me to rethink everything, to shift everything, and to rebuild my life in a way that brings me a lot of joy, a lot of fulfillment, despite my immense loss. And so, what I do now as a grief and anxiety coach is I walk the path of healing with other women in grief, and I help them get to the root of their anxiety. So, what I've seen in my own grief journey and in many of my clients is that anxiety can become a block that prevents us from rebuilding a life where we reclaim our joy, where we get really clear on what it is that matters to us. Life is short, and so we have to figure out who we are now, what we want, and we have to find ways to make the rest of our lives meaningful. And that demands that we clear away all of the blocks that tell us that we can't have this and we can't do that and we can't fall in love again and the world is scary and everybody we love is going to die. So all of these really common fears and anxieties, I really specialize in helping women just clear all of that away, just get rid of the noise so that they can rebuild a life that feels aligned with who they really are, with who they've become now after this major thing has happened to them. And so if that resonates with you at all, you can check out what I do on my website, which is empoweredthroughgrief.com. And so if you only remember one thing from my talk is I want you to know that healing is possible, that even though we've gone through something that feels like the end of our world, we can rebuild and we can reclaim joy. We can feel fulfilled and we can have a life that feels deeply meaningful, even if we experience grief, even if part of that grief will stay with us forever. Healing is possible. And so I'm sending you all so much love on your healing journey, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much for sharing with us today, Marie. I love your spirit and your energy, and I hope something touched your soul, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today, and until next time, be safe, be kind to yourself, and remember, you're not alone. Bye for now.